Hi there. This has been a great week. I now think it's more likely than not that Trump will have a second term. Because I actually just do not see how this massive election fraud, and where more and more of it is coming out, how that can be okay. Something very different is going on in our country with this. So all the old rules don't apply. Despite what the left-wing media, some call it the mainstream media, despite what they say, I believe we're going to win this. Because more and more evidence is coming out. And this is due to the efforts of a lot of people, a lot of smart people, a lot of, we call them brave people. But I don't actually like to look at it that way. They're people who have integrity, people who do what's right. Is that brave? Maybe. But to me, that's the only way to live life. If you just kind of go along and you don't live from your values and from what's right, what kind of life is that? If you get criticized for it, one of the things I've found, if you get criticized for doing the right thing, why do you care? Why do you care? Do you really want approbation from people like that? I don't. I don't care. I don't admire them. I mean, it's really only people I like and respect. You know, I care what they think. That's true. I do care. But I don't care about people who do wrong and people who just want a name call. And I don't have jobs and things to worry about. But even with the job issue, I think we can work around that, because these people who are speaking out, who are having a hard time sometimes because of speaking out, the people who are speaking out are heroes and heroines to all of us. And that's like half the country. So you just have to live with that. Like, I'm thinking a lot about Rudy Giuliani, because he's a really, really good prosecutor. And of course he was a really, really good mayor of New York. Really knows how to do his job. But I think I was affected a little bit by the relentless negative criticism of him during President Trump's first term, when he was the president's lawyer. Because I found myself not admiring him as much, or maybe dismissing him a little bit. And I was affected by all the criticism of him. It affected how I thought about him. Because I look at him now, he is amazing, okay? And I'm really glad people are introducing him as America's mayor, like the best mayor ever, and talking about all that he's done in his past. He's had lots of help, lots of other people, but he and Jenna Ellis, what they are doing with these state legislatures, and they've collected, amassed all this information, and it wasn't just them, okay, other people are doing amazing work. And it's so gratifying to see people waking up. Maybe this had to happen. I mean, how many people really understood about our Constitution? And all these sleepy state legislatures, which really haven't really done anything. I mean, who even cares that much about their state legislature? But especially now, when all these governors, like in our state, California, King Newsom with his arbitrary, stupid, petty, dictatorship type pronouncements, the legislature is starting to have to wake up. So I'm following some members of the legislature in California, Republicans, but they're starting to get more active. And clearly in these battleground states where this election fraud occurred, the state legislatures, when they heard the evidence, I mean, they heard these people's testimony, very impressive individuals, but regular Americans who are troubled about what they saw, but who had very good stories. And of course, they had all signed these affidavits. When this started happening, really this week, the tide has been turning. I mean, there were some people, oh, just, Trump should concede. And it almost seemed as if President Trump was kind of that mindset. I found that very depressing at the beginning of the week. But he's not there anymore. And the mainstream media to me is a joke. They're a joke. Because they don't address these instances of fraud. They don't explain. They don't do any of that. All they do is attack and just say they're lying or it's not there. But you can't do that anymore. And the most incredible, because you can see it with your own eyes, and many of you have probably already seen it, was on Thursday in Georgia, where they had the cameras. It was State Farm, had security cameras for insurance purposes. And nobody knew about these cameras, apparently, and how Trump legal team found them, got them. It's just amazing. Somebody had to go through all the footage. But what happened was, in the middle of the night, or I don't know, 1 o'clock, 10 o'clock, something, they said, we're stopping counting. And they made everybody leave. And it was one particular woman in blonde braids, dyed blonde braids. She seems to have been the ringleader. And there's other video footage that people have seen of her doing something suspicious with one of those drives, USB drives, handing it off to someone. So she has some questions to answer. But anyway, she got everybody out and said, we're done and we'll come back at 8 o'clock in the morning. And a couple people stayed, and you can clearly see they pulled out all these ballots, and there's like 4 people, and they're just feeding it into the machine. Now this is all important, because in all of these battleground states, there's not that many votes that separate Trump and Biden. In fact, Trump was probably way, way ahead. It wasn't even a close call in these states. So that's why they did all this coordinated activity. But I was listening to a video this morning, actually on the War Room Pandemic, episode 563. This is Steve Bannon's thing. And another one of these groups is the Amistad Project. And so one of the gentlemen working with that, he talked about, they just came out with a white paper. And this is important because everybody, and they said, oh, you're going to hear this in the mainstream media. Everybody's talking about the date you pick the electors, so we're running out of time. We're running out of time. But that is not in the Constitution. Those dates are not in the Constitution. Apparently there was a 1948 federal statute where, that's just a federal statute, a law, but not the Constitution, that December 8th, that would be next Tuesday, that's the deadline to pick the electors. And then December 14th, that's when the Electoral College is supposed to vote. But those are not hard deadlines. The only deadline that is in the Constitution, regarding the election, do you know what that is? Regarding this, actually, there's probably other deadlines, I don't know, is January 20th. And that was from an amendment, remember, because it used to be like March 3rd or something like that. It was in March when the presidency would start. But they moved it up to January 20th. So right now, because of that amendment, that's when the president starts the second term or the first term, but that's when the presidential term starts. But these other dates can be changed. And this year, because of this massive amount of fraud, but mainly in these 6 or so states, battleground states, that Trump was winning, that are crucial. You don't have to do those. You don't have to keep to those dates because you need to investigate what's going on. Now, what's interesting is it the courts that are going to decide this, or is it the state legislatures? My own sense is it needs to be the state legislatures. Yes, we could go to the Supreme Court, but I don't know how the Supreme Court would vote. Because you could have views, but how brave are you in those views? Do you really want all that controversy? Do they really want to be the ones that overturn an election that maybe half the country thinks was okay? I don't think so. Listening to some program, they were comparing to the Dred Scott decision. I mean, they might make a bad decision just so the court will stay peaceful, if you will. But the state legislatures, I mean, what a sleepy institution. They don't really even know what their power is under the Constitution, and it's a lot. So they're kind of waking up to what their power is, and that's a good thing. And another thing that's come out about this whole election, which I found interesting, is the election officials and the people who picked the machines, Dominion, they almost knew nothing about it. You know, you think people in these positions are smart people who are really good. But one of the things you find out is, especially with politics, they're not necessarily very smart people. And when I say very smart, they don't really do their homework. They don't really investigate what's going on in these machines. Now, they did in Texas, and they did in some places, so good on them, okay? But why would you pick a Dominion voting machine and you don't even really know how it works? They're just learning. They literally didn't know that it was connected up to the internet. Of course it's connected up to the internet. So we had experts talk about that. I forgot the gentleman's name, but he has testified at all of these state legislatures. These state legislatures are like shocked about what they're learning. They're shocked about what they're learning. So I'm getting hopeful about that we may have a better run country after this. And would we have done this without Donald Trump? It's like we're exposing what's going on. Now, that doesn't change the fact that you have young people who are getting programmed, if you will. But aren't all young people easily programmed? I mean, I voted for McGovern. I mean, in retrospect, what a terrible candidate McGovern was. But my first chance to vote, when I was 18, I voted for George McGovern. And he was awful. So, I mean, maybe that's what all kids do. They just believe whatever they're told because they just recently come out of being under their parents' control. So maybe they just think, well, I mean, they're not taught to think. I'll have more to say on that in a minute. So I'm not going to worry too much about the young people, although we do need to make sure that they see other information than what they get on social media. And the PragerU app is a good one. I mean, Lindsay, one of my nieces, Lindsay, she told me that, like in her family group, they found out about this PragerU app. And I thought, oh, I should have told her about PragerU. I mean, I kind of just thought maybe she knew. But they really like it, you know, the short videos that explain certain things that they're not hearing otherwise. So if you have young people in your life, tell them about PragerU. Tell them about the app. And they can learn about it because they're not learning about it in school. They're not learning about what socialism is, why it doesn't work. So that would be a good idea. I'm jumping around. One of my niece, Julie, who is in college in Utah, we've been talking all morning, instead of me preparing enough for this. But it's been really interesting to hear her experiences at the school. I mean, it's just awful. The mask wearing, the whatever. And she's really smart. But she admits there's a lot she doesn't know. She's certainly not taught it in college. And this is in southern Utah, where she has a scholarship to play volleyball, which is really hard to do right now because of the COVID. I mean, everything's about COVID. They have to get tested all the time. It's just really disgusting. But so it was very interesting, and I adore her because we were talking about, can you stand up? Can you be the only one that disagrees in a group? And she can, and she does. And she does it much better than I've done it, because she does it in a way that maybe is more respectful or doesn't offend people, whereas I would blurt things out. And I was thinking about that. I noticed she was really smart when she was very, very young. So we have all these things around the house. And she was the only child, and really the only person. So Harold, get these weird little awards. I don't know if you can see this. He was interviewed by Discover magazine. So there's like a light bulb in there. And she's looking at it. Yeah, it says Harold Rosen, 2013 Discover Magazine Innovation Award. She said, how did that light bulb get in there? And I never even thought to ask. No one else ever did. But even as a little kid, she'd be thinking about things. Like, how did that get in there? So she's like that. So she's so much fun to talk to. I wanted her to come and say hi in the video, but I guess she's shy. So she's upstairs doing homework. Because, of course, everything's online right now. So she always has lots of homework to do. But it was illustrative talking to her, but also gratifying to talk to her and see how she's navigating through all that. But, her instincts are all in the right direction. So one of the things she said to me, and I understand this feeling, and this may apply to some of you, that if you know something is wrong, like she was asking, what's wrong with Black Lives Matter? I mean, she didn't really like that because she thinks all lives matter, but she didn't know how to argue it. And that can be intimidating if you think, I don't have all the factual information to argue something. But one of the things I found to be very effective is don't argue the facts. If you don't feel like you have a strong factual argument, but you just think this is wrong, that's all you have to do. Go, well, I just don't like breaking people up into groups. I don't like saying things like that because it implies the other lives don't matter. Or just some thought about it. And no one can argue about that because, especially in today's world, you can have feelings. You can have feelings about things, like it doesn't feel right. And and it's so apparent now, one of the very easy ways to figure out if you are being fed propaganda is if they are silencing the other side. Let me repeat that. One of the ways you know you're being fed propaganda is if they are silencing the other side and if they are name-calling the other side. I mean, think about the whole climate debate issues. What happened? Climate denier. Name-calling. Never really addressing the arguments. Because, as you know, that was why I went from being a Democrat to a Republican. That was in looking at the whole climate issue, and at one time believing that it was like an issue, not climate change, but definitely global warming. I thought, okay, it's a problem. What are we gonna do about it? Got into my engineering mindset. How do we solve it? Nuclear power, more electric cars, blah blah blah. But when I looked into it, it was shocking. And basically, what they did is they pushed everybody out. The older, wiser people and the people would not get contracts. If you wanted to stay in an academic or government job, you absolutely had to buy into that. Absolutely had to buy into it. But when I was doing my stuff with Caltech, as I mentioned last week, I'm no longer involved with Caltech. And now, I read one more thing. I'm getting off all their newsletters because I really do not like the academic community anymore. I really don't want anything to do with them. But this was a clincher for me. I will read you. I took a picture of the page and then sent it to myself. That was the only way I knew how to get it. Okay, this was from a Caltech newsletter. On November 18th, the International Universities Climate Alliance, the IUCA, of which Caltech is a member, actually they're a charter member, issued a declaration to the G20 leaders urging them to work toward a zero-emission future. Oh my God, how could I have ever supported that institution? Urging them to work toward a zero-emission future. Now let me say something. Every single professor there, every single person there, they do not work in the real world. That's why they call them ivory tower. They're not involved in business. They're not involved in the cost of energy, how fundamental energy is to our society. They just want a zero-emission world, okay? And all the rich people they can do their trading credit things and, pay their indulgences like in the old Catholic Church, and we'll do carbon offsets while we fly our jets around, whatever. The Davos crowd, it just is, the repulsion I feel is pretty strong, okay? I'm not going to say anything to anybody there. They're finished with me too. Okay. Andrew Thompson, professor of environmental science and engineering. Now he's an oceanographer. And when he first came to Caltech, he was under the Geology and Planetary Sciences Chairs Council. So I sat next to him at the dinner at the Athenaeum. We had a nice talk. And then when we were all supposed to kind of help fund some people's work, I ended up funding his work. He did really good work in oceanography. And he did explain to me that at Caltech it was pretty cool because he was like the only oceanographer. So he's the only oceanographer at Caltech. So it gave him a lot of freedom. It wasn't like at other big institutions where you have this whole hierarchy of, the top oceanographer and the bottom oceanographer, whatever. He could pick sort of what he studied. And I did learn about, I think it's called the ACC, Antarctic, Atlantic, something current. Anyway, it's a current that goes around Antarctica, which is a really interesting current. And then he was also building he was part of this group to build little sea buoys that would go in and check things about the ocean. But just think about it. He's heading up this institute, this group. And I gave money to his, okay. So is Caltech's point of contact for the IUCA, a network of 40 universities. Just 40. So Caltech's leading in this. In 18 countries, united in an effort to engage in international and national policy discussions around climate change. So, do you see the arrogance in that? Now you could say, well, do you see the arrogance in me in dissing this? But this is talking about changing our economy. Fundamentally changing our economy in a way that hurts working people, in a way that hurts our environment, in a way that does major damage. He has no clue. Has he ever driven a truck? No. Has he ever worked? I mean, in a way, people in universities are like in a socialist country. You know, you have to like get grants, you have to make sure you stay in good graces. You don't really work in the way other people work. You get a salary, but where does that salary come from? It comes from fundraising, it comes from the government, it comes from grants. It's not like you are providing a product and making a product that people choose to buy. Except for the tuition, okay? That's part of it. So if you're teaching, yes, okay, that's a business. But anyway, that was about Caltech and my disappointment there. But in a way, it was kind of clarifying. So I'm gonna need to change my online bio because I talk about being on the chairs councils and how much I like science and stuff. And I mean, when science is used this way, and you know, when this first was happening, I would talk to scientists at Caltech and JPL who kind of quietly whispered doubts about the whole thing to me and why they didn't like it. They didn't agree with it. But those people aren't talking anymore because if they want to stay in that environment, it's become entrenched now. You can't question it. You seriously can't question it. And the days of questioning it are kind of over because it's now the religion. It's now a fact. And as you can see, we are all dying of climate change, right? Oh my God. Another thing I thought about was, this isn't gonna happen, but it's just funny. It's like, all these papers and things, what are they gonna do if Trump isn't there and Biden is president? First of all, there's no information coming out of Biden. So Jake Tapper did this interview with Joe Biden. And a lot of people I saw on Twitter were commenting about it. I mean, the look on Jake Tapper's face, I mean, at CNN, it looks so sycophantic, like, how are you? How, you know, it's like, how can you prostitute yourself that way? Okay, they are not apparently allowed to ask any difficult questions to Joe Biden. So Joe Biden just talking, and he said some ridiculous things about if he disagreed with Kamala Harris, maybe he'll just die or get sick. And people were commenting on that. But I was listening to Greg Kelly last night, and he said, his story, there's something wrong with Joe Biden other than his dementia. Because he tells these weird stories. His story about how he supposedly hurt his leg. Instead of just saying, you know, I slipped on a rug and I hurt my leg. Stop, Joe Biden, that's it. He concocts this preposterous story that is really creepy. I'm coming out of the shower, so he's obviously naked. The dog had a ball or something. He's chasing the dog down the alleyway. And if you know my house, the alleyway to the bedroom alleyway, I mean, it was an alleyway. So Greg Kelly was really funny as he would like point all this stuff out. And then he finally got in the bedroom and he pulls on the dog's tail. And so Greg goes, whoa, wait a minute. Where are the animal rights advocates? Nobody pulls on a dog's tail. Except like mean kids or something. It's like nobody pulls on a dog's tail. But he actually puts that in the story. Nobody questions him about it. Why are you pulling on the dog's tail? It's just kind of sick. He pulls on the dog's tail. And the dog then slipped on the rug, which then he slipped on. It was just like, so why is he telling this kind of sicko story that seemed just too weird, okay? And meanwhile, Jake Tapper, he just won't even, because of Jeff Zucker, you know, you can't say anything bad about Biden. I mean, if Biden became the president, he's not going to become the president, but if he did, what are these reporters going to do? What a terrible... I mean, the American public or anybody watching that, they can hear the story, they can hear the interview, and it's like, what? What? And then the way Kamala Harris was looking at him, the whole thing was just sickening. The thing that helps me is that he is not going to be president. He's already said he might not have a virtual inauguration because they're worried that people won't attend. There's no enthusiasm for him. Zero. So everything about this year, this election, is different. So knowing that, you have to accept or argue that the only thing we can do now is follow the Constitution. And the Constitution does take care of this. And people are finding their voice. People are deciding, like the state legislatures, that we need to act here. Because you can't let this stand. Too many people now are aware of the election fraud, and more information is coming out. And I know President Trump is having a rally in Georgia. So, you know, there's a big controversy in Republican circles about the January 5th, which they can do that at another time, by the way. They don't actually have to do it on that date. Re-election of the senators. So supposedly, you know, President Trump is there to rally people to vote for the 2 Republican senators, which of course, it's important. And if I were in Georgia, I would vote for them. But there have been some who have said, and I think this is like a negotiating strategy, why should we vote when you haven't fixed the situation in Georgia? They have this weird agreement with Stacey Abrams. There's already a bunch of fake votes there. They're still using the same Dominion systems. So why would people go out to vote in a flawed election process? So you had Lynn Wood and maybe Sidney Powell, I'm not sure if she said, who just said, you know, don't vote until they fix this. And then on the other side, you know, Newt Gingrich and other people, oh, it's terrible, it's terrible, it's terrible. Well, fix the process. So on Sunday, I mean, there's still some people that are, there's a few people still good on Fox. On Fox Business, Maria Bartiromo was really good. And she was questioning Kelly Loeffler, I think it's Kelly, the woman running to retain her seat in the Senate. And she just was saying, oh, you know, it's important that people get out to vote. And Maria Bartiromo was really pushing her, like, what are you going to do about fixing the vote? And she kind of danced around it. And I thought, not smart, okay? You need to come out strongly for President Trump. You need to say this was not right, what happened. So Ryan Kemp, the governor, is feeling the pressure, and maybe things will happen by the time you're watching this video. Maybe there will be more with whatever this rally will do, because you know, President Trump, he can get people all fired up. And with that video, I mean, there was a lot of other evidence, but with that video, people could see it. I mean, you expect us to, you know, not believe, you know, our own eyes? They're trying to say, oh, it's not happening, it's not happening. It's like, sorry, we can see it. And also, there's just so many things. So there's really, like this Amistad project, I want to pronounce it right. It's Amistad. And they're filing lawsuits all over the place. And there's a whole lot of other groups that are filing lawsuits. It's not just President Trump's legal team. But what President Trump's legal team is, I think what they've done really especially well this past week, is they're bringing the witnesses to testify to the state legislatures. And we can watch it. And it's very compelling. I mean, you just listen to these individuals, and they're like, this happened. And they're smart people. They're people with integrity. You know, Americans, everybody actually, it's like, elections are like a game, and there are certain rules. If the rules are followed and your team loses, you're bummed, but okay, you lost. But the Democrats, or the activist Democrats, the leftist Democrats, aren't behaving that way. They're cheating. And the cheating is so blatant. Oh, and that's another thing I want to mention. One of the things that's just, not so much this week, but the week before, why are people on the right, so many people on the right, not everybody, dancing around, well, maybe there's alleged voter irregularities. It's almost like we cannot project that somebody would do something like this. To me, it is like incredibly obvious. It was obvious after the first day. And for me, the prima facie evidence above everything else, that was like framed the whole thing for me, was when they pushed out the Republican observers. Why would you do that? They literally got them out of the room when they're legally required to be there. And then they put the boards up, like in Pennsylvania. That said to me, you're cheating. Because if you're not cheating, you'd want them there to say, hey, see how we're doing this? So on top of all the other irregularities, that alone, that was allowed to happen, that they didn't say, no, you can't do that. That they got them out of the room. They pushed them out of the room. They harassed them. Cheating. Obviously cheating. Now, how much is the cheating? It turns out the cheating with these ballots was huge. Huge. Just to give you an example. So this gentleman that was speaking for the Amistad Project. Okay, let me just give you 2 states. Arizona. Supposedly Biden is ahead 10,457 votes. 10,457 votes. Now, the guy who was talking was legally, saying it precisely. So he used the word potentially. But I'm thinking, no, these are bad, okay? I can translate. 300,000, he calls them potentially fraudulent votes. Because remember, they speak very precisely, can't say for sure, but they are. Between us, we know. They are. 300,000 in Arizona. And Biden, 10,457 is ahead. So, Trump won Arizona big, okay? Georgia, 12,670 votes separate Biden and Trump as of the current count. There are 200,000 potentially fraudulent votes. $200,000. And all these states, from the testimony of the people, it was just really disgusting. They only had the Democratic activists there, and they would work together, and they were the ones deciding on so many different levels they cheated. So many different levels. And why did they think that was okay? Why did they think that was okay? Because the media has been telling them and getting people to believe that Trump is Hitler. I mean, if I was in Germany in 1938 and there was an election, wouldn't I cheat on a ballot to make sure that Hitler got out? Wouldn't you? So, I mean, you had to start with that. You had to make Trump so bad that many people would cheat. And then you couple that all into, a lot of people don't have religion, they don't have values, they watch movies where people who cheat are treat it as like if they're smart and they're cheating, like it's a cool thing. You couple all of that, and these people cheat. That's just amazing. Amazing. Okay, I want to close with this. Anyway, but. No, I'm going to close with something else. I think we're going to win this, okay? Whatever happens, there are some major changes coming. And I actually believe, because the more the time passes, it's not like we're running out of time. The more the time passes, the more information that comes out. And, you know, many people are followers. And, oh man, just one of these states flips, it's going to happen. But earlier, there was kind of a sense with all these rhinos and, well, why don't we just move on? You can't move on from this, okay? This information is available worldwide, that Biden is an illegitimate president. Literally an illegitimate president. That he's in office, it's because he cheated. The election was flawed. How can we have a country with flawed elections? With an election process that people can't trust? You can't. It's not going to work. And so we're going to win this. And hold on to that thought. We're not giving up. It's almost like not a matter of being brave. I really don't think it's a matter of being brave anymore. The evidence is overwhelming. And if you're refusing to look at the overwhelming evidence, and, you know, like, I don't know, some huge number of people in some polls, and it's going to, the more people that see it, so the only thing you can try to do is try to keep that away from people. Try to keep that information away from people. So everyone you talk to, everyone you say, just say, hey, cheating was rampant. The fraud was rampant in these cities. And maybe it was other places. He probably won. I mean, they're not looking into it. He probably won. I've heard intimations that there was stuff going on in Virginia. He probably won in Virginia. He probably won in other states. He might have won a lot bigger in California. I don't know. A lot bigger in California. So, this is, okay, we live in interesting times, very interesting times. Now, one of the things I want to put, Sunlight RX, like prescription, he gave me a amazing poly video. And it's called This Is Important. And it was on BitChute. And I would say that video had me thinking all week. And if you have a chance, I'm going to put the link in. I really encourage, you don't have to like join BitChute, but watch it. Because what she talks about is how people follow and how we can, because we're social creatures. And it was actually pretty fascinating. And just showing videos of some experiments that were done and how people will do really ridiculous things. And I'll just say one of them was, they had this one woman alone in in a waiting room. Everybody else was actors, but she didn't know this. So there would be a beep, and everybody would stand up. She's kind of looking around. And by the third beep, she stood up as well. She didn't know why she was standing up, but she did it because everybody else was doing it. She felt weird being the only one not standing up, I guess. So the question is, would you stand up? Well, I mean, I started a little gratitude book to write down things I'm feeling grateful for. Because Lindsay and the kids got me a little Christmas present with this beautiful notebook. And I thought, what can I do with this? Oh, I'll make it a gratitude book. And so I did. And one of the things I wrote down was, yeah, I wouldn't do it. I'd be the only one, but I would not do it until I understood why are we standing up. It's got to make sense to me. And I think you're almost inborn with that. And in talking with Julie today, with this wonderful conversation, she's the same way. She wouldn't do it. She'd kind of be quiet about it, but she wouldn't do it. She'd go, why are we doing this? And I love that. I love, you know, you've got to exist in the world. So like, let's say there was a problem, but at least if you'd stand up with protest, you know, off the beat. But there was a huge amount of interesting fallouts from that experiment. And I encourage you, if you're interested in that, and thank you, Sunlight Prescription, even though I don't know your name. Thank you for that. And also, this is my 52nd video. I've been doing this for 1 year. And you know, there's been a lot of changes in my life, like not doing anything with Caltech anymore, which was a big part of my life. And I thought, do I keep on with these videos? So I was kind of playing around with the idea of maybe not doing it. And this, well, I guess it's happened other weeks. But for some reason, I got so many nice, encouraging videos, comments from so many of you. It really, really meant a lot to me and continues. And so some of them I just, because I had a lot going on, I didn't have time to answer. But like Kimberly Vallette, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right, but I knew her as Kimberly Vincent when we were in high school, junior high and high school. Beautiful gal. I guess she still lives in the Fresno area. But she watches my videos, and she just wrote me a beautiful comment. And Kimberly meant so much to me. And I really wanted to write you this long letter, but I'm like, oh my God, I'm talking to Julie. I gotta do my video. So I just put a heart. And then Julia McLaughlin wrote me a nice thing about, and many people wrote about my positivity, and they liked that. And I do love giving motivational speeches, if you will. So I want to continue doing this. I love doing this. And it's worth it to me. And Bambi, oh my God, Bambi said, I like to listen to your video twice. And when she's listening to my video twice, what a compliment. I'm just rambling here, and she's listening twice. Bambi, do you know how sweet that was? How much that meant to me? And Michael, Ghost in the Machine, always says the most fabulous things. So, and there's a group of, I could go on and on with the names. Let me tell you, I read them and I'm just like so touched, and it means a lot. So, I'll be having my 53rd weekly video, and I will continue on because I love this. But I want to mention something that I find interesting, because clearly there's going to be people every once in a while that decide not to watch my videos or unsubscribe. But I think YouTube's doing something. Now that I've heard about how these Dominion voting machines work, where you can just kind of shave subscribers off, because I'm sure I said controversial things before in this week of doing weekly videos, but my total subscription number got up to 2.83K, so almost 3,000 subscribers. But I've noticed since all this election stuff started, like every week it drops, maybe 200 or something. So now I'm at 2.73K. Now, yeah, sure, there could be some people that decide to unsubscribe, but this never happened before. I never saw the number go down. I saw the number flatline at times, but I never saw it drop. So I'm thinking, okay, YouTube's doing something, most likely, because I don't think it's actual individuals saying, oh, screw her, I don't want to, well, I've had some people the whole time, like in my last video, this one woman wrote, I'm unsubscribing, because I said, I don't want to be safe, and that like really set her off. Okay, before she even watched it, she just decided, I can't go there. So I understand that can happen, but I'm kind of thinking that, no, YouTube's doing something. So I just thought I'd mention that. So make sure, well, those of you that listen to me, you probably do get notification. But if you're not getting notification, make sure you hit the bell, make sure you subscribe, and we'll see what happens. But this has been such a pleasure, and I want to thank all of you for this wonderful year I've had doing this, and we are going to win this election. We're going to win one way or the other. I mean, we are going to win. Something really exciting is going on in this country. And we have to stay upbeat and visualize President Trump in his second term. Don't visualize anything about the pervert guy, okay? Because our collective, now I'm getting woo-woo, our collective mind can help it happen. And our strength. And all you people in the rallies, and there's even a rally in Beverly Hills right now for this. So, but I'm doing my video, and there'll be more to report next week, more to talk about. I'm looking forward to your comments, and I'm looking forward to this adventure that we're on. It's a new world, and we're going to win this. Bye now.